Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out important news. And with us today, because the news is big, is David Elsley, President and CEO of Cardiol Therapeutics. And the big news today is, for the first time ever, we're calling it new stock symbol CRDL, because they've now listed on the NASDAQ and fully trading. They also remain listed on the TSX Big Board under the stock symbol CRDL. For those of you new to the story, because you've seen their new listing on the NASDAQ, we know that biotech companies by their very nature can often be difficult to understand for investors. But in order to understand Cardiol, all you have to know is they're developing anti-inflammatory therapies for heart disease and heart failure through cannabidiols. And that's the last time I'm actually going to say that word. More than just lip service, the company has approval from the US FDA to commence a phase 2/3 double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial. And what they're doing there is investigating the efficacy and safety of their lead clinical product, CardiolRx, in hospitalized COVID-19 patients with a prior history of cardiovascular disease. We know that's always been a problem. It got exacerbated during COVID, and unfortunately, it looks like it's going to get exacerbated even more with what's going on out there. They're also planning a phase 2 trial of CardiolRx in acute myocarditis, which is the most common cause of sudden cardiac death in people under 35. And finally, they're also developing innovative therapies for heart failure, which, as we know, is the leading cause of death around the world. More than just lip service, the company closed a $22 million bought deal financing back in May. And as of August 10th, trading on the NASDAQ. David, welcome back to the show.
George, it's great to be back, and thanks for having me again so I can update you on the great progress we're making at Cardiol.
Well, this is going to be a great one because you've now gone to the next level. Generally speaking, NASDAQ, it's the center of biotechnology stocks in this world. It is the epicenter. How big is it for you guys to now be listed on the NASDAQ?
I think from a capital markets perspective, this is by far and away the most significant milestone this company has achieved to date. Because now we are listed on the premier global stock exchange for life sciences companies. It is the exchange that has discovered some of the greatest medicines companies of the world that have transformed the qualities of lives for millions of people. Now we are on this exchange, and this gives us a platform to communicate the great progress we're making in inflammatory heart diseases, which are, as you mentioned in your preface remarks, one of the leading causes of death and disability in the Western world, and the number one reason people are hospitalized each and every year in the United States, costing the healthcare system tens of billions of dollars. So we're thrilled with this development. This provides us a key gateway to communicate with the largest life sciences community in the world, which is the United States. It's the largest healthcare market in the world, largest capital pool in the world. It's the home. It provides a platform to build the brand of Cardiol Therapeutics and build awareness for future partners, such as the pharmaceutical players, the large biotechs, and obviously to further educate analysts, life sciences investors, and patients about the great work that we're doing for people with heart disease.
When it comes to the business side, so that's a capital market side, obviously the benefits are massive for investors, for all shareholders, because of new investors that will be coming in. But on the biz dev side also, David, does it make a big difference there with big pharmaceutical companies that may have been interested in Cardiol and what it was doing, but you weren't listed on the NASDAQ, you're listed, on Canada as far as your major exchange goes. But now, does it flip a switch? You're inside the club and they're more likely to think and talk to you and about potentially doing business together?
Well, I think from a corporate perspective, it's a great boon to Cardiol because it allows us to basically create a friction between some of the most sophisticated, powerful life sciences investors in the world and the dominant pharmaceutical players in the world. I mean, we are developing what we believe are breakthrough medicines for deadly forms of heart disease. I think myocardia provides a classic example of the value proposition to big pharma. I mean, myocardia was a NASDAQ listed company valued at around 200 million back in 2017. Bristol Myers acquired them for 13 billion in the fourth quarter of last year. just 3 years after they entered into that important area of medicine. That's the path Cardiol is on. And now that we have this NASDAQ listing, it provides us the ability to access the most efficient development path for our therapeutics. So for example, if we're developing a new therapeutic for heart disease, obviously you can think of Pfizer, Novartis, Sanofi, that type of company as prospective partners. But if we're not able to attract the deal that makes sense to us there, we can create the friction with the investment community in the United States, who may offer us more efficient sources of capital.
True.
So take the development further down the line and add more value to the organization we're building.
So you got the capital market side and the biz dev side potentially facing off for Cardiol if you can't get, the partnership or the deal that you're looking for, which is great.
Absolutely. It allows us to set the speed of the agenda, because you can have the behemoth investment banks and investment analysts and life sciences investors competing for the asset to revalue it with the likes of the big pharmaceutical industry. And then you can have the big pharmas and the big biotechs playing off against one another. So we're in an era where we have biotechnology companies with market valuations over $150 billion. So it's no longer just the club of the big pharmas with those incredible market valuations. Now you have the big biotechs of the world commanding market valuations. With the advent of like Moderna, for example, you have a market cap of almost 200 billion.
Wouldn't that be something? But let's talk about how to get to that end game, which is the most important part about all this. Let's try and educate people on where the company stands right now with your FDA clinical trials. Where are you at, and what does the timeline look over the next 6 to 12 months?
So Cardiol Therapeutics has one primary focus, and that is developing anti-inflammatory strategies for inflammation in various cardiac diseases. And the 3 areas of focus that we have at Cardiol is high-risk cardiac patients who unfortunately become infected with the COVID virus because they're at a markedly elevated risk for mortality or major cardiovascular complications. That's our most advanced program, and there we're looking to provide a cardioprotective or an anti-inflammatory benefit in those patients, because it is really the immune reaction to the COVID virus that causes this profound inflammatory response, which can lead to cardiopulmonary failure and death of that patient. That's our most advanced program. That is a program that is operational now in the United States under an FDA-approved IND. We have a pending program in acute myocarditis, which is a tragic form of inflammation of the heart muscle, which remains the leading cause of sudden cardiac death in young, healthy adults and children. And then we have a very ambitious program targeting a form of heart failure called diastolic heart failure, which remains the #1 reason people are hospitalized in the United States and is a leading cause of death in the developed world, affecting 26 million people around the world. And there really hasn't been a new therapeutic entrant for this form of heart failure in over 20 years. And we have a new innovation to target the inflammatory fibrotic process more efficiently, we believe, in an effort to reduce mortality and morbidity associated with that devastating form of disease.
Is your differentiator the cannabidiols? Because someone might stay at home and say, well, if the biggest pharmaceutical companies haven't done this, the biggest life sciences companies haven't done this through traditional means, then what makes Cardiol think that they can actually make a difference?
Well, Cardiol Therapeutics has worked in heart failure medicine for 30 years, the team here, always focused on inflammation and heart disease. The genesis of Cardiol Therapeutics, which is our second major effort in heart failure medicine, was a discovery made at the National Institute of Health by a world-renowned researcher back in 2010, where he discovered that cannabidiol, as you mentioned, or now more widely known as CBD, could reduce inflammation and fibrosis in the heart in a model of heart failure. We were fascinated by this because one of the challenges of other anti-inflammatory strategies in heart failure and heart medicine is that steroids, for example, have toxicology concerns, and in some instances, they can actually make the condition worse. So here we have this interesting drug called cannabidiol, which has profound anti-inflammatory properties, but doesn't have the toxicology concerns that typically accompany other anti-inflammatory strategies like steroids. And we've now developed what we believe to be the most advanced pharmaceutical platform to deliver this important drug in two formats. One is an oral formulation to allow us to get high dose medicine into acute cardiac conditions where the patient's at high risk for mortality. So we can get lots of drug on board immediately to confer protection in the early phase of the disease. And then we developed a subcutaneous formulation that we'll be speaking more about in the third quarter and fourth quarter of this year, where we have a way to deliver this drug much like insulin, where we can put the drug directly into the systemic circulation and concentrate more of the drug in the heart where the inflammation can cause the damage. So we have two interesting drug strategies here at this company where we're developing the anti-inflammatory properties around cannabidiol, but importantly, we're doing it pharmaceutically. So we have developed a pharmaceutical platform. We do not rely on a botanical source for this medicine as others do. We believe this is the most advanced way. I mean, it's manufactured under full GMP to the highest standards of the pharmaceutical industry. And it is for that reason that we believe we will be a wonderful prospect for partnering with big pharmas in the future as we develop this for some of the largest medical markets in the world.
The two biggest risks to biotech companies, generally speaking, are time and money. So let's talk about time. And first of all, how far away do you think you are from from getting the final results in your clinical trials? Maybe for the lead for the COVID-19 patients with prior history of cardiovascular disease. How far away? How much further time do you need in these trials?
Well, our public guidance concerning the phase 2/3 program is we plan to enroll the patients during this fiscal year. And as you may well be aware, the Delta variant now is raging in the southern US and causing massive spikes in caseloads, infection rates, hospitalizations. Florida, for example, the state of Florida has a higher hospitalization rate right now than at any other time in the pandemic. And we have over 20,000 cases a day now in Texas, and caseloads are rising even in the northern US with even New York State, who had it well under control. I think there was 5,000 cases there just 2 days ago. So the caseload, the infection rates are rising, hospitalization rates are rising, and that is feeding into the recruitment effort of our program, which is now recruiting patients. So that is the most advanced program. We do plan, like if we look out over the next year, our objectives to this organization is to recruit and report that study, to initiate our follow-on program in acute myocarditis, which is this deadly form of inflammation in the heart muscle, which is the #1 reason young, healthy people die suddenly of cardiac causes. And then we plan to move our new advanced first-in-class subcutaneous formulation also into clinical development, targeting perhaps the second largest medical problem in the world, possibly the third next to conditions such as diabetes or maybe Alzheimer's disease. Heart failure would probably be the third largest medical problem in terms of impact on quality of life, hospitalization frequency, mortality. And that's a market alone that costs the US healthcare system $30 billion annually. And we believe that's going to be a very valuable asset for this company and of great value to future pharmaceutical partners.
If we're looking at a Gantt chart and we're looking at the progress of all three of those, do you have a ballpark ETA when when the clinical trials you expect ballpark? We're not going to pin you down to a specific date, but for investors at home to kind of get a feel for ballpark when you think you'll be able to come to the end of those trials.
Well, the phase 2/3 program, we plan to complete enrollment, which is substantially the completion point of the trial. And then that would set the study up to report early in 2022.
Okay. And
to the extent that, I mean, I don't think any of us know how the pandemic is going to play out, but this Delta variant is certainly suggestive that as the great Larry Brilliant, who is part of the World Health Organization, who basically eradicated led the team that eradicated smallpox. His quote, I believe, to CNBC yesterday was, "We are closer to the beginning of COVID pandemic than the end." And he comes from an interesting point of focus, given that it took a decade to eradicate smallpox.
And you obviously, I'm sure you feel the same way. You hate for that to be the reason that more, even more attention is gonna be on you. But do you think that starts to bring a lot more attention to you as you complete enrollment and as you start the trials and all that? Do you expect a lot of eyeballs to be taking a much closer look at Cardiol at that point?
Well, I think it's a most unfortunate situation that
Yeah.
we may be in this new way of life for much longer than any of us hope. But I think it's also rewarding to be able to be part of the development of therapeutic strategies to protect patients that are inevitably going to be affected by this disease in the short and the long term. So I absolutely believe this will make Cardiol Therapeutics a focal point, because we believe protecting those with a prior history of cardiovascular disease or risk factors for cardiovascular disease is of paramount importance, because they are by far and away the most vulnerable patients to mortality or major cardiovascular complications to the extent that they become infected with this virus. And we now know the Delta variant is a far more contagious variant than the original versions of this unfortunate virus. And we still have not got the world population vaccinated, and that's going to be an ongoing challenge. So we're going to need a dual strategy. Obviously, vaccines are an amazing advance in this area, but herd immunity to get there could take a 90% inoculation rate. And I think we're struggling to get over 65 or 70% in most regions of the world. In some regions of the world, over 50% has become a struggle. And other areas don't even have access to the vaccine yet.
Which means that your trial, your clinical results in sometime in early mid 2022 couldn't come fast enough. David. So that's the timeline. Appreciate that part. The other element is money. Now, you did close a pretty significant financing, $22 million bought deal. And up until then, I think you'd also raised another $27 million from the exercise of warrants and equity raises in the year before. Do you have enough cash to take you through to where you need to go?
We're in a very strong cash position right now. That's why we chose to migrate to the NASDAQ without doing a commensurate financing with that effort. Many companies that list firstly on the NASDAQ, they would do a financing in connection with that. We were fortunate to have been opportunistic on the financing front. We raised 22 million at a very efficient rate, which has put the company in a very strong financial position to uplist on the NASDAQ and execute on our programs. We're very comfortable with our financial position currently. We believe the NASDAQ offers an opportunity for Cardiol to ultimately be discovered by the largest life sciences community of the world, which will ultimately lead to a revaluation of this company, we believe, and an ever decreasing cost of capital going forward, and put us in a strong position for future negotiations with partners as we advance these important medicines.
And you just took the question right out of my mouth there, which is, how important of a role are partnerships going to play? And when do you start seriously evaluating, reaching out and having those kind of potential partnership conversations? Is it after the clinical trials are done in early mid 2022, or is it as they're occurring because partners want to come to the table faster, almost a hedge risk or play an arbitrage there and make a bigger bet earlier? I'm not exactly sure how that happens in the biotech world, and I'm sure a lot of investors watching don't. So what do you think is the ideal time for partnership conversations?
I think the ideal time is now, because there's been some extraordinary partnerships struck early phase research, which ends up speeding that research along to the benefit of patients and all parties involved. And there's been obviously midstream partnerships struck after phase 2 data, which Cardiol is on track to deliver in 2022. And then obviously there's more mature partnerships that are struck following phase 3 data, which interestingly Cardiol is also on track to deliver, because we have a phase 2/3 study operational now in the United States. So between the balance of 2021 and 2022, we are now entering an ideal time to build awareness amongst multiple constituents in the life sciences, biotechnology, pharmaceutical industry. That includes partners, investors, analysts, and the cardiology community at large. What the public presence, the public platform allows these companies to do more effectively in life sciences is build a brand, build awareness. That can enrich recruitment into your studies because you build awareness that your study is actually happening. Otherwise, patients have no way to know there's this new innovative treatment that may be able to help them. So the public platform can provide a brand building environment on many fronts that can accelerate your research, decrease your cost of capital, fortify your positioning around partnering events that can accelerate your programs further.
How many people do you need to enroll, by the way? I should have asked you that earlier, but ballpark, how many people do you need to enroll in the trials?
So the phase 2/3 program that is currently operational in the United States is designed to enroll 422 patients. The follow-on program in acute myocarditis, we would expect that study to be enrolling approximately 100 patients. And then the first proof of concept phase 1/2 study in heart failure medicine, we'd expect that to be a proof of concept study somewhere in the range of 75 to 150 patients. So these are not enormous studies, studies that we're experienced with executing. I mean, at my prior company, we ran trials involving up to 3,000 patients. So we can scale to the requirements necessary, but these trials have been properly designed to answer important questions concerning the cardioprotective properties and anti-inflammatory properties of the therapeutics that we're developing. We believe these trials will conclude and will answer those important questions and position this company for commercial success and further innovation in the future.
Yeah, for the phase 2/3 clinical trial, unfortunately, but again, fortunately that you guys are around actually doing it. It shouldn't be hard to be able to, given what's going on with the Delta variant, it shouldn't be difficult to attract those 420 patients. Dave, we go on and talk about the company, but we've got a great overview there about all the elements, the capital market side, the business development side, the clinical trial side, and what's happening. Congratulations on where you brought to you and your team to where you brought the company today. I'm going to leave parting words to you to talk to either and/or the loyal shareholders you've had up until now, and to all new investors, especially the American biotech investors, life science investors who may be watching this and would love to hear last words from you.
Yeah, I'd just like to compliment the great team that I work with. I mean, we have an amazing team of dedicated folks with this organization. We are an insider-held organization. 17% of this, 18% of this company is held by employees and insiders. So our interests are inextricably aligned with all shareholders, and that's what gets us out of bed in the morning. And being part of improving people's lives is just an amazing way to spend your time. So compliments to the Cardiol team that got us to where we are today. And to our shareholders, I'd just like to thank everyone for their continued interest and support of this great organization. And we look forward to delivering on very significant milestones in the coming few quarters. And I think now with this NASDAQ listing, we have a platform where those milestones can be more appropriately or better appreciated and valued by a much larger community of patients, healthcare providers, prospective partners, and life sciences investors.
Well, David, I think I speak on behalf of everyone where I say we wish you a great deal of success, both as shareholders, which would be great, but also as as people, civilians of the human race, to make sure that you guys get to a great end here, so you can help as many people as possible. Because unfortunately, right now, it's looking like a lot of people are going to be needing Cardiol going forward. So Godspeed with that. But for today, congratulations.
Thanks for having me again, George. It's been a great pleasure to spend some time with you again today.
Always great having you. Can't wait to have you back on, because it seems like Cardiol now is about to go into overdrive and things are going to be really accelerating. So I would expect, and I wouldn't be surprised if you and I are going to be back on these once a month for the next 9 to 12 months. And that'll be great. That'll be my pleasure.
Happy to come back.
For everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To David Elsley, he's president and CEO of Cardiol Therapeutics, brand new listing on the NASDAQ under the stock symbol CRDL, and of course, still trading on the big board Toronto Stock Exchange under the same stock symbol. Two ways now for you to do your due diligence. One, get to Agoracom, where we've got a great overview of the company, because we know biotech and life sciences aren't always the easiest thing for people to understand. But at some point, and from Agoracom, you're going to have to go over the Cardiol website, do your deep dive due diligence. The company is right at the beginning of this next growth cycle. It's cashed up. It's going into the phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials right now, almost as we speak. It's all underway. So make sure you do your due diligence, because don't tell us 12 months from now that we didn't tell you so. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel and never missing another great Agoracom small cap video.